welcome everybody to Backsberg. Backsberg is a family-owned farming company, which was started by my grandfather in 1916. So we are 4 years off from being 100 years old. He came from Lithuania and worked as a dock worker in Cape Town, and eventually bought this property in 1916. But what we do and what we managed to achieve is really a team effort. So starting on the right is Guillaume. He's been our winemaker for the last number of years. Next to him is David. He's a very important person in our lives because he looks after all the numbers and all the money. Then there's Clive, who has been with Backsberg for close to 20 years, running the vineyards and running every obscure idea that I come up with. And obviously there's myself, and then this is the real boss over here. People like to think I'm the boss, but this is the real boss, my wife Jill, and fourth generation Simon. And then sitting on the far left is John Spears. John has been with us for close to 8 years. I'm not sure exactly what John does, but it's everything from sales and marketing and human resources and finance and legal and everything that I don't seem to want to do. John does. So that's the team that makes Backsberg what it is today. There are a couple of things that are locked into the DNA of Backsberg as a company. Besides trying to make fine wines and do a good job out there in the vineyards. And one of them is corporate social responsibility, and the other is related to our passion for care for the environment. In terms of corporate social responsibility, we have two main programs. One is a housing program which has seen all Backsberg workers actually move off the farm, living in their own houses that they fully own. They're free to trade with, they're free to do whatever they want to leave it to their families. So we've finally broken the tie which has existed in South Africa, an agricultural environment, between people living on the farm and their roof. And so now we carry on with another project which Backsberg set itself up to graduate 50 students over the coming years. And we had a meeting or a gathering of the students that we graduated to date. So we're halfway there. We're just fractionally over halfway there. And it comes from the underlying family philosophy of give somebody a fishing rod and teach them how to fish, and they can fish for the rest of their lives. We're an immigrant family into this country who have done well, and we see it as our responsibility to return some of the benefits that we have received. In terms of the other aspect of the environment and it being part of the DNA of Backsberg, this is a much more recent project. We've been working on this for about 5 years, and it's something that I am totally passionate about, and what we're trying to do is ensure that the footprint that we leave behind is as small as possible. So we started off a couple of years ago trying to understand what we own, and then we decided to see how little can we own doing the same job in the same way and continue to improve in quality, but deciding what we need to make sure that we only have what we need and we don't have a surplus beyond that. So every couple of years we do a carbon emissions audit. It's done by a third party. We look at the consequences of our actions, and we look at the consequence of our actions from the gate of our suppliers, because we can decide what we buy. So buying has a consequence. Then we look at the consequences of our emissions within our processes, of which you saw some of that in terms of reducing the amount of kilometers per hectare that the tractors have to operate. fundamental change that we've made in our grape growing practices. On the one side you have vineyard row spacing of 1.8 meters between the rows. Behind me you have a system which is called the lyre system, where the rows are 3.6 meters apart. But in reality, the amount of canopy, which is really the factory of the vine and the ability of the vine to produce fruit, is exactly the same. So what we have here is two models which give the same output, but from an environmental perspective, the model behind me with the lyre system has the incredible upside that the amount of tractor work is half. And then we take it the last step, which is then to the distribution centers of our distributors. So if the wine goes to the UK, or the wine goes to the United States, or the wine goes to the Far East, we calculate the mass of product that goes to the various markets. And so we know then what is the consequences of what we do. And then we calculate the CO2 emissions, and we offset that by planting trees both at Backsberg and in neighboring villages. We only plant where we can see, and we plant primarily trees that will provide shade, because shade enhances the quality of life of people. The range of wines that Backsberg makes, we've kind of divided them up into various tiers, and we also have some new products. So this is what we call the premium range, which is or it's part of the premium range, which is really varietals. These wines over here are what we call the black label range. We just call them that because they happen to have black labels. So when we are making the black label range, we do a selection out of the premium range, and then we take the best of that goes into the black label range, and then we do a further selection which goes into the top wines that we produce, which is called the Backsberg Family Reserve. In the case of the Backsberg Family Reserve, when we were trying to think of a name, we decided to call it the Backsberg Family Reserve because Backsberg is run by not only a family, but it's also run by very close colleagues who are really part of the family. And we have a new range which we called Tread Lightly. And the interesting thing about Tread Lightly is that essentially the wines that are in Tread Lightly are the same as the wines in the premium range, but it's in a PET bottle. So we have probably about half the weight. And as I'm passionate about things of the environment, this is a huge statement in terms of environmental care from our perspective. Sitting right on top is the king of the range. This is our 10-year-old brandy. It's a product that my father started to make in the early 90s. So we have 5-year, 10-year, 15, and we now have a 20-year-old product because we have brandy from our first distillation in 1991. If I can try to capture what is the Backsberg philosophy, then I think it's centered on two words, care and respect. And when I say care and respect, it has to be care and respect for ourselves, for the property, for the business, for our clients, for the environment.